17th. Can you get a motion to open?
So I move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so the first thing we have is our minutes from October 12th, 2022. Take a quick minute to look at that.
So I think I'm motion to the minutes of October 12th.
I agree. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We have Mr. Toole from Conoco.
Right. Good evening.
Good evening.
Aye.
Are we,
So,
I'm doing good. How are you?
can complain for an old guy.
There you go.
I think, we had met out on the course back a couple months ago now at this point, and we received your proposal, and I think we really just wanted to understand a little bit more about what the scope, like what this would and wouldn't do for us, what it's gonna help on hole 15, and how it could also potentially impacts 14 as well, I think. So if you wouldn't mind just kind of walking us through
Sure.
what you'd be proposing for us, that'd be great.
Sure. Well, at the time we met out there, the thought was to turn that hole into a par 3 and to move the tees up. And I understand that's under discussion right now.
The idea of putting the tees in is on hold since our last meeting
Okay.
until the spring. So I think I think we could I think we can continue with the discussion of the pond and the pond edge, because whether or not we do a tee or not, it's not going to stop the sloughing off of the edge of that green and collar into the
Right.
pond and
Correct.
remedy for
Correct.
that. So.
So the concept was to put the tees by the cart path, and then in part, the reason for moving the pond edge back by the green was that you could actually see the green from that point, because right now, with all the vegetation growing up in the edge of the pond, you can't see that edge of the green. And as Steve said, that edge of the green, we've got some problems there, structural problems there anyway. That's where the discharge pipe from the well comes in.
Yes, it's
In
true.
that area.
Yeah.
So the idea is one of the concepts was to move that edge of the pond a little bit further to the left of the green. And so instead of it having come out in front of the green, have it move a little bit to the left, and then go back by where in front of the existing tees, but in between the existing tees and where the proposed tees would be for the par 3, is to bring the pond out a little bit in that area, because it's kind of it's a no-play zone out there. And it doesn't affect whether the tees stay as a par 4 or the tees go as a par 3. It's still out of play. And that way you can get the surface area still for the pond. And that's part of the reason for doing that, is because that pond is a regulated resource area under the Wetland Protection Act through the Conservation Commission here in town. And so you have to compensate. If you're going to fill part of the pond, is considered what's called land under water and bank. And if you have to fill part of land under a water bank, you need to create it somewhere to mitigate for it. And that would be the easy swap, is to just move further back along the pond and create a little bit more pond edge. So, I mean, in general, that was the concept of what we were talking about doing out there.
How much near the pond, near the green, is it gonna be up more? Slanted more? You know what I mean? You know, as you go into 15,
Yeah.
like, we're losing some of that edge, correct?
Right.
Okay. Up, built up?
We can build it up.
I don't know, I don't know what.
Yeah, we by moving
Is
the
that the
pond,
plan?
by moving the pond in,
Right.
well, that would be, Tim would answer the
Okay.
questions about sloping by the green and everything.
Okay.
But by moving the pond edge in, it gives us the opportunity to raise that area up, the collar
Okay,
by the green, raise the collar up a little bit and have a more gentle slope coming down off the side.
okay.
So we certainly have the opportunity to do that by moving that pond edge over a little bit.
So you know where the trap is in the front there?
Yeah.
On the right?
On the right side.
That the approach area is very narrow. Is that gonna be pushed more into the existing pond, so we have to create?
So again, I apologize, but the golf course architecture part is not my thing.
Oh, okay,
That's
all right.
that's Tim Garish, who met with us out on the
Okay,
site.
all
He's
right,
the architect.
Okay, all right.
So I don't know what Tim's concept
Oh, okay,
is for moving
all
bumpers
right.
around or anything.
Well, the concept was, initially, that we're going to push that, you're going to extend it out And probably the easiest way to extend it out is to take more of a permanent structure, like a boulder edge. I mean, you could get fancy and try to build a wall in there, but I think if, for instance, Dan has done it several times with materials in other locations where you just take the excavator and you create that area you're going to expand and put those boulders on the outside to stop the water movement, and then you push it out, and it's going to be level, and then you're going to have a drop into the water.
Right.
So we can't have, if we try to put a gradual slope with something that's going to wear, then eventually you're going to have the same problem with the water action. So the idea is to come out far enough on the left-hand side so you can make a gradual turn.
Okay.
And then you're going to have to eliminate a portion
Of that corner?
all the way up, almost at least to the back of the green.
Oh, okay.
Because you're going
to the
to
left side of the back of the green.
Yeah, you're going to open that up.
Okay, yeah.
And then you can, if you wanted to, you could probably expand the approach, or you could just leave it as rough. I mean, you have sufficient irrigation there. If you were to expand the approach to the left, then what you would have to do is change the corner cut so it would flow in, the fairway would flow into the approach.
Right.
You don't want the fairway coming here and the approach to be over here, and you have this uncomfortable jog of rough sitting there.
Right.
So as far as the turf is concerned, the playability of the hole, it'll increase the playability of the hole visually.
Right.
And if you hit a ball in that area, which I'm guessing is going to be anywhere from an additional 2 to maybe 4 feet,
Right.
You'll be able to play it where before it was the water.
Right.
But it's not, to me, it's not going to make a significant difference on the difficulty of the hole, because you still have to manage the water,
Right.
especially depending on where the tees are placed if we do get to that point. But as Mike alluded to, our biggest problem on that corner with movement of the tees is visual. You can't see anything.
No, right.
And in order to manage that vegetation on that close edge, because, and yes, when you put those stones in,
Yeah.
you're not going to stop. Eventually you're going to have some vegetation that might be up on the other side,
Right.
and that's far enough away where your visual line, your line of sight is open.
It's good.
And I think the last time we met, a lot of people had questions about things like which, is it necessary, I don't think we had a clear understanding of the NOI process and the idea of the things that had to be done and the cost of those things. And I think that's all, as Mike had alluded to, that's all regulated by Wetlands Protection Act and the area that you're working in. And a lot of those, you can't just go through those and say, well, we don't need to do this one and we don't need to do that one. But we do need to, but I think some of the other questions are, well, can our conservation people do that? And we just go tell them what they want to do, and they go out there and take a look at it and say, okay. Well, and Mike can correct me if I'm wrong, unless we give them some type of plan, then they're not going to sit there and just approve what you say. They want to have something concrete that they can look
It's
at.
actually a requirement of the regulations that you have a plan stamped by a surveyor and/or a registered professional engineer.
One of the things I would like to know, and I was asking the questions there before, is do we have to go through all those agencies, through the federal, the state, and everything else to get permits to do this? Or can we just do this by drawing our thing and then present it to the local guys? Do we have to go to the state, federal, or county, federal, and all them? As it's stated here that we got to do that.
I put that in there because it depends upon how much work you do in the resource area. There are thresholds that the Conservation Commission by themselves can approve. And if you go beyond those thresholds, and we haven't designed it, so I can't tell you
Right.
where we are with regard to the threshold. So for safety, I wanted to put those things in there and let you know that if we do work there, that work is regulated by the DEP. It is regulated by the Corps of Engineers and by the Conservation Commission. The question is, do you have to do a separate filing with the DEP? You will have to do a separate filing with the Corps of Engineers, because that's a federal law. The state law under the Wetland Protection Act, and there's also a law called Water Quality Certification, that's state. The Conservation Commission deals only with the Wetland Protection Act issues. The water quality certification issues go to Lakeville. But under the Wetland Protection Act, if you stay below certain thresholds, the presumption is the permit that your Conservation Commission issues is also valid for the DEP. There's no such presumption for the Corps of Engineers because it's a federal law. So I can tell you that you have to go, I don't know what level we have to go to the Corps, because there are different levels of application, but we have to go to the Corps of Engineers and the Conservation
I didn't know that.
Commission.
Since it's a man-made pond, I didn't think it fell into all.
Well, I don't know
those
whether you remember
criteria.
when we did the course. I mean, you and I worked on that many, many years ago, and we had permitting at all those different levels that we went through for the course. It wasn't just the Conservation Commission, it was MIPA, if you remember. We were with
Yeah, right.
MIPA people, we were with the Corps of Engineers, we were with the state under water quality. So we went through all of those at the time when we designed the entire course back in the 90s. So changing things in this particular resource area, even though it's man-made, we made a resource area. And that happens all the time. People dig ditches, they become resource areas. They dig ponds, they're resource areas. Okay? So it's all regulated, and there's no differentiation in the Wetland Protection Act between natural and man-made. It is or is not a resource area.
The only reason I write that is we'd like to build a wall and then fill in the back
Yeah.
of it. And it's a question with some little trees there or fescues there that are, how can I say it? They show that it's wetlands.
Well, I mean, like Mike said, it is a resource area. I mean, you can have somebody delineate it and actually identify the species, but you have the Phragmites and other plants growing there that are grow in those particular areas. And as you said, with the replication, you take that portion on the side that you need, and then you replace it by the portion down on the bottom, which is also, or closer to the T, which is also important for us because you want to retain the volume holding capacity of that supply pond, because the volume and the height of the water in that pond determines what goes into the overflow pipe and what goes into the pond, which you draw from through the irrigation system. So you want to keep the existing relationship the same, so we don't have to go fussing with the overflow pipe and all that stuff on the other side.
I got a question for Mike. So the vegetation that's near that green, does that get reused in another area, or do we have to go out and buy vegetation and replant it in another area?
Well, because it's got so many invasive species in it,
Right.
you probably don't want to reuse. Matter of fact, the commission will probably not want you to reuse
Okay.
it. The reality is that the new area that we build is going to wind up with the same stuff in
Oh,
it
okay.
anyway.
All right.
You know?
But trying to answer that is, so do we have to get the same kind of vegetation that's there to replace that what we're taking out?
We don't want that vegetation.
Okay, so
we
it's-
want something different.
Oh, okay, all
So
right.
we would design it with
Okay,
something different.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
And the other thing we could do too is take that design vegetation and use that immediately against the top of the wall, if required, or if asked for by the Conservation Commission. Like you said, most of those species are invasive species.
Yeah.
Put it bluntly, they ain't supposed to be there.
Right.
And they're, nuisance plants, and if we can get appropriate vegetation in there with with the beneficial growth habit, then it won't be as much of a nuisance as the existing plants are in there now.
And the other thing we would do in the request that we make to the Conservation Commission is we would request the ability to do vegetative maintenance. And that would be, then if you wanted to, you'd have the opportunity to go in there and manage some of that invasive vegetation.
Oh, okay. Makes sense. Right.
I understand now.
Another thought I had, was there potentially, Steve, some work along the pond that has to be or should be done at some point, I have 14 as well?
Well, the issue with the same thing is happening on the right side of the 14th green. Again, it's, and Mike and I looked, I think it was back in 2014, we
Yeah.
took a look at that. And now it's tilted a little bit worse than it was then. But that portion adjacent to the green, which is an issue, which is similar to this one, but we also have an issue with the backside of that pond, in that when that pond was constructed, there was never a substantial overflow preventive measure put in the back. Basically, all they did is they took the pond liner cover, they rolled it down the hill, which I think was a mistake because it caused part of the problem. They put vegetation over top of it, built a nice back to the pond. Well, when the pond is full and you get these big rainstorms, several years ago we had a couple storms where I remember, the only way we could cut the greens on the backside is put the walk greens mower in the bucket of the tractor and drive it out there because it was the only highest thing to get us out there. And what happened is the water started to breach that backside in the vegetation. Like I said, there was no dike, no concrete, nothing solid. So that's how the Grand Canyon was made, believe it or not, by a trickle of water. And it started, and it got bigger, and it got bigger, and then all of a sudden it pushed through, and now it pushed all the way through and down. And if I adjusted the probes in the pond, so the pond level doesn't go up as high anymore, because if it goes up that high, it's eventually just gonna blow that backside out. You're gonna come in one day, and all your water's gonna be back in the
Steve, is that what, there's a flip piece over there? The back of 14?
Yeah, it's because the line is underneath.
Oh,
Yeah.
It looked like a big area just like.
Well, there are a lot of trees over
Flipped.
the trees that were over there. That storm we had several years ago that came through here pushed them all over.
Okay.
And I couldn't get. I mean, this fall I'm going to try to get back there and remove some of the vegetation from them and see if I can upright them, or at least upright the stumps. But they're all they've grown over, and then I can't remember the name of that vine, but that bloody stuff grows over top of it, and they're not going to spring back. So I got to get back there, and I can get around 3/4 of that edge, and I got around 3/4 of the other edge. Now I just have to get over where the thing washed out. But that issue behind the pond, on that backside of that pond, was there before those trees fell over. As a matter of fact, they're on the back right-hand side as you face the pond. They're not an issue to where the wash through was. And actually, some of the trees that were positioned where the breakthrough was, kind of helped you because they had mass, they had roots, and they were holding material, and so a lot of stuff didn't go down the hill. But
So you need a spillway back there.
Yeah, it needs a spillway.
So Mike, on 14, we're losing property on the right side of that green?
Is that a question?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, you're not so much losing. Probably what happens is sinking. The collar should be flat or relatively flat.
Right.
The collar's at an angle.
Going
It's
down.
at an angle towards the pond.
Right,
It's
okay.
going down on an angle so much that the triplex can't hold, even the 3-wheel drive machine.
So at one time that
Can't
was
hold.
flat.
Yes, I mean, it was relatively flat. I mean, it was
Right.
down, I'd say there was a little bit of a slope on it, but it wasn't,
Yeah.
it wasn't as bad as it was. What happened, I mean, you can't really see it. I mean, you
No.
could measure it if you had a real long time lapse.
Yeah.
But when the wind blows and the water gets high, the waves come across and they wash up.
Oh,
And when
okay.
they pull back, every time they pull back a little bit of sand, particles, other
Right,
stuff.
right.
And what happens over time is it just starts to sink.
Yeah.
And the crown portion, the flat portion, becomes less flat because it just falls into that slope. So I mean, I looked at that. I thought of just taking I've seen it done before on a lot of other golf courses. This is basically a pile driver. And when they originally build the ponds, they take the pile driver and they drive in these, kind of like what they do down at the shore to
docks.
build the docks and stuff. They drive in these posts,
Right.
and that whole side is either a wooden side or it could be a stone side.
Right.
And what you're probably going to have to do again, as you did on 14, is you're going to have to reclaim some more of the pond, and we got plenty of room to reclaim the pond up between the 12th green and the 14th fairway, where the pond comes up, where that one tree sits there. I mean, it's plenty of room, which wouldn't bother anything. But that's another thing in the future. I mean, that you would have to look at. I would think that it'd be easier to probably separate the two projects, and you know the regulating powers that be would probably want you to do that anyway. I don't know. I mean, you know, you could go with one filing, but you're in two different locations. So.
You could go with one filing, and then you have 3 years to construct it.
Yeah.
Well, that was
Because
part of
you-
why I was asking to begin with, because like, over half the cost of this estimated cost is a notice of intent in that Form 404. I think if you, in like a year or two from now, if you had to redo it again, would we have to pay all that again? Or if we're thinking of potentially doing work on 14, could it be included all at once, so then not have to incur $9,400 twice?
Yeah, because you notify the abutters one time, you go with the filing one time, you go to the commission, 3 times or whatever, it takes you 3 meetings. So it is less expensive to do it together. You have to have all of the survey and engineering done for both projects at the same time. And then you have 3 years to build it. You can get extensions to that. You can get 1-year extensions. So you do have time to build the 2 projects, and you don't have to build them at the same time.
That's what we're going to do.
That's a,
Because if it's something we're gonna have to do anyway, why not?
Yeah.
At least, if we were to do this, include that at the same time, to then not have to do all the notice of intent and everything twice.
Seems logical.
From my perspective, I found this informative to have you walk us through this a little bit today.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure.
Adds a little bit more than just, reading it on the printed page, so, thank you. I'm not sure if you guys have any other questions.
No, I don't have it.
no.
Okay.
So
Do you want me to look at 14?
that would be, yeah, I mean,
I think
that's
that's a good idea.
that'd be fine, fine with me. I mean, again, I mean, now that we've seen this and we've got some of the questions answered, and understand the conditions that we have to deal with out there, we should probably come up with some type of timetable. Because like Mike, before any of this goes forward to any commission or anything else, you have to have the engineering and the surveying stuff. So if you want to do it within the next 12 months, or something like that, then we should try to plan on that. I mean, this kind of work can be done in the winter as long as you're not under snow and stuff. And of course, in the winter, there's nobody out there winging golf balls at anybody, so that would disrupt either the golfer trying to play or the people trying to work. So depending on how, what the committee feels like doing as far as moving forward, at least if you got engineering and surveying work done, and then you could go through the process of meeting with these regulatory bodies, because you can't put a shovel in the ground until they put their stamp on it anyway.
So kind of a realistic timeline would be, if we're gonna do both 14 and 15, is to do the surveying, engineering work, and then even the permitting work this winter into spring, but probably not do construction until next fall.
Yeah, that would be my recommendation.
Because spring, you don't wanna be playing in the water out there, there's just
No.
too much water.
No, and I don't want to be playing in the water when I got to crank up the irrigation system. I want to be playing in the water when I turn it off.
Right, so you turn it off in November?
Yeah, I could, depending on the year, I can go earlier. It's first week in November. Usually the first Tuesday, because we kind of have a little collaborative between 3 of us, who use one person with the supplies the compressor, and he goes from one club, drops it off to us, and then when we're finished, it goes to the third, going to go to the third club. So it's usually the first week in November. Sometimes it can be earlier. But
Yeah, so November, December, January, maybe January are good time to be building some of this.
Yeah, and
The
it'll-
one downside is the concrete, if you're gonna put a weir in, and the liner
yeah,
has some temperature
yeah.
requirements.
I pulled out concrete just off the top of my head. I mean, there's whatever we can come up with to suggest that would work for some type of weir, some type of spillway.
You do
And-
stone.
Yeah, and that would get us. It would get us enough time to also either get a particular, get the whole bid process out, get somebody online to do it. because that's, that's this, once you get the approval, then you have to find somebody to do it. And like Mike said, that would be the time to do it, because
I think that makes sense to me, that if we're going to move forward knowing that both ponds are going to need some work, why not expand this just a little bit now, take a look at 14,
Okay,
and then see if it makes sense to go through that way, to then not have to incur those other costs twice
Yeah,
down the road.
not
If we
right.
did a 3-year
Yeah.
timeline, and even if they're not both done next year, we have 2 more years.
2 more
to
years,
then
yeah.
Get the second one done after that. I think that'd be a better use of the permitting funds and time and whatnot. The others agree with me, but that's the way I'm looking at it.
Need to make a motion.
I don't know what kind of motion would make, just to go with this,
What-
with
What a motion more to let him-
Proceed to 14?
Proceed
Motion
to
to
let him-
incorporate both of them together in the same project.
Yeah, because right now we only got one, right?
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Right, so tasks 1 and 2 was roughly going to change, obviously, right, if you incorporate 14, so I think more tonight is like, are we on board with that route, right, including the preliminary work of 14 at the same time, then we would have a revised proposal in front of us and say, okay, let's go with this.
Yeah, that would be.
Task 3 will change, because there's engineering involved with
Okay.
the spillway,
Okay.
which is different than what Tim does. Tim can't design an emergency spillway,
Mhm.
so we'd have to have one of our engineers do that.
So I think that's the route we might want to go then.
Sure.
And do it that way, knowing that we will bias that timeline for this.
Have them take a look at 14, get a revised proposal, and then,
Yeah.
then go from there.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go.
When do you meet again?
Haven't
meet
figured that
every
out
month.
yet.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, we don't pick the date until the previous meeting, but it's usually around the 3rd Thursday of every month.
Okay. That gives us time to
Yeah.
look at it and put something different together. Okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
All right,
And
thank
Mike,
you.
thanks
Thanks
for
for having me.
coming, and happy holiday.
Yeah, happy holidays to you.
Don't eat too much.
No, well, I can't promise that.
And stay away from invasive plants.
Yeah, or eat them.
There you go.
If we get the deer and turkeys to eat them, then we get rid of
Oh,
them.
boy, yeah, well, or the geese.
Maybe get them to stop chomping across my green.
You should catch someone, of course.
Yeah,
Huh?
they're just.
You
they're
can
like
get
cats.
some for nothing at the
Yeah.
Oh,
course.
yeah, yeah.
See it all the time in the bunkers and stuff. You watch the prints go right out.
Oh, yeah.
And then
You can go by
especially,
that
they
guy,
always have
three of
to
them
do
there.
it after the rain.
3 years there.
Yeah.
You know, when
Oh,
everything's
really?
soft. Yeah.
I get
They
some
come right
right
Especially now,
I
the
get
bucks
some in
are a
my
little bit
backyard.
heavier, you know, and
The
it's,
guy next to
they're
me has
sinking in.
one of those tree cameras.
Always fun.
He
You
showed
don't
me-
have any moose?
Look, yeah,
No,
tree
no,
cameras.
I had those when I was up in Maine, so no thanks.
we have-
That's worse than the
We had
cow.
a.
Thanks
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike.
See ya.
Somebody, bye-bye.
Bye, Mike.
Nice to
I'll
see
call you, Steve.
Yeah, okay.
So, moving on. Maintenance work week change. Sounds like a Steve item.
Well, what we're trying to do here is we're trying, because the way in which the payroll system works, we have to have a better definition of what our work week is for full-time employees. We run into a situation where we have a full-time employee who, for some odd reason, I'll give you an example. I mean, we have a day where it's raining, and raining cats and dogs, and we get done what we best can get done by 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. And I don't have any indoor work for people to do in that kind of circumstance. So normally what I do is I'll send the majority of the people home. And what happens there is we either try to make it up later. If in fact there's a particular week where we can't make it up, and the payroll goes through and they say, okay, here's a full-time individual, they didn't work 80 hours. So in order for the accrual process to work properly for sick days and other things, you have to work those 80 hours. So what we're doing by this is we're saying, okay, our work week is going to be based on 36 hours. And then any person, any full-time, or any person who works between 36 and 40 hours will still get paid at that same rate, but the work week is based on 36 hours. Anything above 40 hours in a regular work week is obviously going to be overtime. So that's what we're trying to do here. And as you look at, Ed included the sheet, as it says, the work week would be based on 36 hours for full-time employees. Any hours in excess of 36 hours, up to including 40 hours per week, will be paid at regular time and wage. Any hours in excess of 40 hours per week will be paid at overtime rate / wage per said hourly wage employee or individual. So, this is what the town administrator recommended that I draft, because this has to be, this has to go to the treasury / payroll folks, so they can put that into the system. So then when they start putting times and stuff like that, and we don't have that issue of not meeting the appropriate amount of time for accruals to take effect. So technically,
We
it's,
discussed this before, so a motion to approve.
It does accommodate the 4-day work week during the winter.
yes.
Your 36 hours becomes your default, regardless of
Yeah,
how many
36
days.
hours comes your default, so, yeah.
I don't have a problem with that.
To approve.
Yeah, so
We're good with that?
Well, Manny, just so we can have it on record, so Manny made a motion to approve that,
I'll second.
seconded by John. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right.
All right, here we go.
Poll number 2, bunker repair, local contractor scope of work.
You know, Ed had asked me to draw this up, and I believe, I think you put a copy of it in your handout there. And it's relatively self-explanatory. Basically, it's kind of, this is kind of what bid document specifications do, but this is like the organizational page. And then in the rest of the, the rest things are outlined specifically. But for not having something, I put this together, and that's what it, that's basically what it says. The scope of the work, you're going to create a grass swale where the back left bunker is. The center left bunker is going to be rebuilt. The middle or forward bunker is going to be turned into a grass swale, the little small one, and then the forward bunker by the fairway, we thought about rebuilding that one as well. So what this says is what the contractor will supply and perform, and then what our staff will supply and perform to accomplish those ends. So, I don't know if anybody had a chance to read through that, had any questions, anything they wanted to point out.
Well, I guess my question is, like, 3/4 of this work has already been done, right? I mean, we had somebody coming in and starting the job.
Well, actually, no. The only thing that there's been about, if you were going to divvy it up metrically, you're probably looking at the 16th of the work that's been done. We were supposed to start at a certain time. We were unable to start at that time. Then when we did have one afternoon, I believe it was an afternoon of work, and then we had a period of approximately 2 weeks where there were some issues, and the contractor couldn't make it. And now we're sitting, this week with, and then
Snow coming.
well, I mean, the weather's changing, the ground's going to freeze. The sod cutters are going to stop cutting sod. And I'm just looking at that project right now and saying, is it to our benefit to try to jam this in here at the end of the season and hope we get everything done? Or would it behoove us to let it sit as it is? Because as what is out there now is not going to be significantly impacted by the winter weather or what occurs this winter. And then we can reestablish our startup in the spring. And what I'd like to have instead of meeting somebody out there and sticking this paper under his nose and saying, this is what we're going to do. I'd like to have a little meeting with him and get all this stuff ironed out prior to doing this. This is how,
Pop-up
that's,
visit.
I got a question.
that's the appropriate process through which you do these projects. I mean, if you're building the town hall, town hall or a new police station, or if you're building an addition to the library, you don't discuss the project as you're standing there. So everybody has some idea, then you tweak it as you're standing there.
Absolutely, that's
So-
why I'm
Go ahead.
curious how we even got a price quote from somebody if we didn't know what the work was to be expected out of a
Well,
person.
it was kind of back and forth. Well, you can do this, we can do this, type of thing, so.
I got,
As it was going, continues to go back and forth, I said, that's what I kind of asked Steve.
yeah.
Why don't you put in writing what you anticipate the contractor to do and what you can do to support the contractor?
Right.
And then get a commitment of what the price estimate cost of doing the work was, what is in an agreement. So basically, I think Steve did a good job of defining what his expectations are. Now I really think we need to get the contractor to review this and say, yeah, yes,
Right.
yes,
Because he
yes.
might have a way that he was thinking on doing it versus how Steve wants it
Right,
done.
I think we should get them in here while we're all here. That, I really do. I think that's an avenue that he isn't the only one that needs to verify everything that's being done. If it's all in front of us, there's 1, 2, 3, 6 people here that there could be no or come back and say, hey, I never said that.
Yeah, no misunderstandings.
There was a misunderstanding, or whatever. I just think, it's something that all of us need to take care of and have him come in.
Sure.
And say,
Yeah,
what?
but we don't need to have him come in and go down every bullet.
No. Just have him sit.
Well, see, the only thing that you don't have
You
is
need a time frame from him, definitely.
Well, you need
Exactly.
a time frame, you need a commitment time, but the other thing is that you don't, in any circumstance like this, you don't have anything written down. I mean, even when I get an equipment quote from a supplier, I get, quote me a price of a piece of equipment. He just doesn't quote me the price. He goes line item by line item by line item by line item, and and they tell you, check each thing, verify that this is what you want and what you don't want. I mean, like they'll put, you ask them for a headlight kit. Well, the headlight kit from Toro costs $500. No, I mean, I can go to Napa and buy a headlight kit for $150 and put it on. So I'm not going to get that kit. So I draw a line
Scratch it.
through it, scratch it out,
And
re-quote.
here's another issue that I think, where he says to be supplied per bunker by the contractor. Right? So Steve's got a few, I'll just go over 2 of them. One, sand bunker. Is he used in the place you get sand, or is he going to Horseneck Beach and grabbing sand?
Well, see, the thing, this one doesn't have it on it. I caught that when, after I had handed it to Ed, and I would specify that he used, that we have to use, normally what you say in those documents is you specify a particular sand. Like, for instance, what we use is reed sand and gravels,
Right.
native, number 2 mil, which is the size of the sieve that it goes through, bunker sand.
Right.
And you specify that.
Okay.
And if that, or you could say an approved alternative. And that approved alternative has to meet the same specifications as the original bunker sand. And, we're lucky because we're down here by Carver, and Reed Sand and Gravel has their operation down there. And
Okay.
most everybody around here uses Reed because because it's so accessible. But it would be the 2 mil bunker sand. The same thing with the screen topsoil. When I say screen topsoil, so 1 3/8 inch screen loom. I don't want big rocks that are going to push up.
All right. So here's another question. So that stuff comes in. You're there to verify whether that sand is the correct sand or that topsoil is the correct topsoil.
Yeah, I mean, they just show
You
the
can do
delivery
that.
pic. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we could, well, for instance, what we did on 18
All right.
is Dan Tibbetts ordered the material, and they would come and we stockpiled it right there by the shop because he didn't want to stockpile it out by the 18th green. He said it'd be too much of a mess. And delivery truck comes in, there's the slip, There's what's read off the slip, sign off on the slip,
All right,
and there it
okay.
goes.
All right.
So, but that's what, that's what normally, and that's how these things normally go. And if you don't have it down in, again, I hesitate to do things where it's not down in writing and it's not agreed to, because you don't,
Right.
whether, whether the best way to determine is miscommunication. You get miscommunication, then you have an issue, and it delays your project, and it can, nobody's comfortable with not
Right,
having
it creates
things.
bad blood and
Yeah,
everything.
it delays the price too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, now, we have, again, it's not a rush. It's not something that's a do or die right away. So maybe we should consider taking the time to do that in the next month or two, so we're squared away and ready to go in the spring, and get a clear understanding, as Ed had mentioned, about cost, because the contractor may have not considered all of those when he put his
Yeah.
original.
So when he
Yeah.
takes a look at this, it's, whoa.
Yeah,
it's
there
more
might-
than I was
there might
willing
be
to
a
spend
whoa,
for the
yeah.
project.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this, Steve, real quick, is if you were to lay sod now, what are the chances that it would take, or?
Well, right now, it's not the question whether it's going to take; it's whether it's going to survive.
Right.
Because what happened when you get sod from the sod, from the sod farm and stuff, they can't afford to give you a lot of soil, so they give you, you just get a little bit. That's why it can be rolled up in a roll. If I was sod, I would feel I would not have a problem if I was sodding right now. If I had sodded last week, I would
Right.
be very comfortable with that. But I'm sitting here right now looking at high 20-degree temperatures on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday overnight. And what I'm concerned about is the ground freezing, or your topsoil freezing, and then you end up trying to fine-grade topsoil that's chunky, that's frozen because it's wet. I don't care where you go anywhere around now to get topsoil, after all that rain we had this weekend, it's going to be wet. My top dressing sand, when I tried to top dress this morning, I had to take the top layer off because it was frozen together and it wouldn't go through the belt of the top dresser. So, yes, if I was sodding right now, or at the very latest, the beginning of next week, I would be comfortable. But then, you've got this cold weather moving in, you've got the holiday moving in, and then, it's a crapshoot at that point. I know there's plenty of guys that do it. You put the sod down, you anchor the sod. One of my intentions is, since we're not going with capillary concrete or something like that, is I want to sod completely straight through the bunker. Put a sod flooring in the bunker, similar to what we did on the fourth hole. Of course, we're going to cut the drains out. But, again, with the drain, you have the drain tie, you have the pea gravel, you have the fittings and connections, you have the cut underneath the cart path to consider and stuff. So that has to, be, have a clear, where you're going on that. But, this is a good start, but like John said, we need to sit down and discuss that and make sure everybody's on the same page. And again, in the spring, the other thing I like about the spring is that your growing season is starting. It's not ending.
Right.
Now you're going
Yeah,
to the
the
end.
other direction.
Things are going to go dormant and what have you. If they haven't in some places already gone that way. In the spring, things are warming up. Yeah, you might have a little bit of moisture to deal with, but at least you're going in the positive direction instead of the other.
I think it makes sense then to take the time to triple check that what you're getting is what you want, right? And then if it fits your timeline to have it done very first thing this spring, and you're comfortable with that, then that's the way to go.
Fine with me.
So the contractor, so you have not met with the contractor, right?
No, I had anticipated him being there today, and he wasn't. He didn't make it today. So,
So we'll start with you making contact with the contractor.
yes, I will. I will call him tomorrow and see if we can get together and do this. And he's got my number. I've got his number. And and part of this, in making clear to this and making sure that timeline is that I don't know how to kindly say this, but I'm not going to chase. I don't want to chase someone. I don't want to be, continually, you know, I wanna have a little niche in time cut out in his schedule for us, so we can bang this thing out. Because if I know that little niche in time, I'm gonna change my schedule
Right, you
prior
work
to
around
it and after it. So all the available people I need to help him out and get this thing done, I can throw right at it for that time period, and I don't have to worry about the peripheral stuff. And that's what, I mean, Kevin and I talked about this, and he said if we have that, you know, if we have that window, then we can adjust both, you know, all our other stuff that we're doing, and then we can, you know, throw people at it and, you know, and work together and get the thing banged out, so.
Possibly have it coincide before we open?
That's a possibility too, all depends on the weather. I mean, if it's, you know, in the spring, you know, as the ground thaws, then they start cutting as soon as, you know, sod-wise, they start cutting as soon as the ground thaws. And it's, in some cases, you don't really have that, the last 2 years, we didn't have that heavy of a frost in the ground, so. You know, I've seen, I mean, as I see him going to the Cape almost every morning when I drive in. The side trucks go by me, and you
Yeah.
see him in the middle of March, depending on what the weather is, start to go. So I will,
So you need to move a motion to move this for spring?
I don't know if we need to vote, but I mean, it's because we've already, the project's the project, it's just the timeline that.
Okay.
All right.
We haven't approved the contract price, and we haven't approved where the funding's coming from. So it's sometime we need to do, if Steve can meet with the contract and get a commitment and some kind of contract written,
Documentation.
I believe, which may even include the attachment of the scope.
Exactly, so once, if you can meet with them, go through this, verify.
Right, get a price on the scope.
Expectations, then if the person wants to change their price, well, then we need to revisit that.
Right.
If it's going to be for the same first initial estimated price we were given, then we go ahead, we've told Steve to move forward with it, but then we can just get that all down in writing and signed off on.
I'm fine.
All right. 2T start frost delays. So starting on 1 and 10 at the same time, essentially, to get
Yeah,
more people out in the shorter
We had
days.
bounced this idea around, and I had spoken to Steve this week about it, and we came up with, rather than doing that, because with the volume of play we're seeing, we're not even gonna need that second tee. So he was saying, why don't we just push back the start time to go at 9 o'clock rather than 10 o'clock, and then just go off 1. So that's what we did actually for today and yesterday, because we didn't have a lot of bodies and everybody's been watching the weather, and when they came out it was around 10 o'clock. We backed the tee sheet up to 9. We didn't have any issues with you know, an overburden of customers with the temperatures that presented themselves. So for next week we set it up at 9 o'clock to go off 1 tee, and I guess if we do get a lot of demand, I can talk to Steve, like maybe if there's a day that's 5 days out that they forecast 75, or say maybe we try doing 2 tees on that day.
Yeah. Talking about that, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving is supposed to be in the 50s. So.
Yeah, so maybe that
well,
day we try it.
We were talking about that this afternoon,
Yeah,
so.
yeah,
I mean, and it goes too, you know, just because you move the tee time till 9 o'clock,
yeah.
I mean, you know, most guys, I mean, if you have 9 o'clock tee time, you're not showing up at 5 minutes to 9, right?
Right.
So
Well-
if we have a particular
I don't
day
know about
where,
that.
well, I mean, you can't speak to you personally.
Let me just say, you know, my son, he shows up 2 minutes before.
Some guys, hey, our course,
But
it's 10
anyway,
past.
if, you know, there may be instances where, okay, we don't have, like this morning, I mean, last night, I mean, yesterday it rained,
Yeah.
and the wind was blowing yesterday afternoon, and you had the cloud cover overnight, and even though it was 37 degrees, we didn't have any frost this morning. So we were able to start right away. So on some of those days, even though we have 9 o'clock tee sheet start, if somebody happens to, you know, if the frost dissipates prior to that, there's nothing that says they can't start earlier than that. So, but 9 o'clock prevents that, you know, guy who's showing up at 7, you know, it's 7 o'clock for a 7:45, 8 o'clock tee time standing around.
Yeah, no.
for hours.
Yeah.
And then it just gets ugly because they get antsy.
Well, I mean, we have limited resources for which to accommodate them if they have a wait. And basically our resources is hang out outside,
That's it.
wait till it,
Yeah.
wait till it warms up. We don't have a clubhouse facility, dining facility. Although I had a pesticide seminar at Wachusett Country Club on Tuesday. And inside their building now, they have 3 of those, I don't know what they call them, where you can play any golf hole or play any golf course or any, it's the video machine.
Video.
You hit into the thing
Yeah.
like that, and I'm saying,
Oh,
geez,
yeah?
if we took something like that and cut all them trees down behind the 10th tee, and we put 3 of those blocks in
Keep
there,
them busy for a
little
while.
heated building, little night, little coffee
Yeah.
donut type, I mean, there you go.
Yeah. That's coming with the clubhouse. We'll
You
get-
probably make, probably this day and age, you could probably sell the trees for firewood and make up the cost of it. The way the stuff is going.
They don't want to burn pine.
No,
Oh no, there's a lot of oak back there.
it's not cheap. Just bought some.
I think it's fine, Dane and Steve work together to just pick the start times that make sense, right, based on the weather and demand. Now we've got FY '23 revenue update.
Slide those down that way. Slide those down this way. So in front of you, we have the updated spreadsheet with October's numbers. As you can see, October of the forecast. Forecast plan was 207, and we came in at roughly 202, rounded up. So we missed it by 5. And if you carry it across, we're still up 47,500 for the fiscal year for July through October. Thus far for November, we've already achieved our number for the forecast. So moving forward, the bodies that we get through will add to that 47,000, and hopefully, if you look down to the 2022 actual, that November we did 133,000. I'm not sure we'll quite reach that number, but I mean, if we can get to 125, 129, that would be great. But this is typical this time of year, is when you start seeing you're approaching Thanksgiving. Everybody's starting to think about shopping, money, inflation, and the rounds start to peel off a little bit because guys put their clubs away based on holidays. Some do it on Labor Day and so forth, and some guys it's Thanksgiving, and then they start thinking financially, like, I could use the $72 for Christmas presents. You know what I mean? Rather than me getting another round of golf in. So we'll see what happens. But
That's great, we've already surpassed the 45,000
Yes.
estimate for November, so great. All right, so we'll keep this in order then. So next thing is the bill for Tim Garish. We don't usually have a singular bill in front of us. Is there a particular reason why?
Well, it was somewhat of a shock to see this bill. And I know I was mentioned to Steve several times, what is this gonna cost us? And at the time, you didn't know.
Well, the cost outlined in the proposal, but this is, that invoice covers the first site visit, the draft of, I think it's outlined in the cost, the draft of the conceptual plan.
sketch.
And then you had asked me to have someone come out, either Tim or Mel, to evaluate the trees situation, which I think should come down, so you had another opinion on that. So I had him come out and do that. I mean, when we bring Mel out, it's $600 to $700 a pop,
300.
and we don't have, so, and that would be 2 visits, basically 2.5 visits of his.
300.
300.
Huh?
Now it's only 300, not 700 or 800.
In-
Sure.
in-
600 last
in
time.
the budget,
Huh?
and it is in the budget.
Well, I asked him to submit this because, I mean, you can't expect a man to come out here for free.
Right, right.
And in the original proposal, if you do, if you go through the proposal, you can, you could delineate hourly wage or site visit wage. I mean, I think, for the 3 things that were done, I mean, I think that's, I mean, I don't see where that is exorbitant or overly charged, especially for an architect. You have Mark Munchen down here, you would have been looking at almost twice that.
Mark Mungin is $750 a
A day.
day.
So that was 3 visits, so that would be $2,100, right?
Right.
Which is.
Should probably come out of
So
the capital.
I
though.
guess my question is, what is his fee?
Well, it's in the proposal.
Is the daily fee?
Review 15th hole conditions with committee proposed change, provide conceptual sketch of 15th hole, review proposed tree removal narrative. So that was what what was paid for. I mean, I don't know if I could go, or that was what was billed. I mean, I don't have the original proposal in here, but if we go back through that, I'm sure I could calculate an hourly wage if that's what you're looking for, or a site visit costs this much, or a review costs this much. I don't have that at my disposal in order to tell you that.
Should that come out of the 100 that we have in the at the top of our budget? The
No, I
reserve?
mean, this was something that was, I mean, in order to get the things that you want to get, to make the decisions you want to make, you need to have, people give you, professional opinion and professional, just like Mike did. I'm sure at the time when his, when you come to enlist his services, that you're going to have, you saw his bill or his proposal, and you saw what was outlined in the proposal. There was no, resource area delineation, task 2 survey, mitigation plan. If you go back to the original proposal that Tim had, some of those things, similar things are outlined there.
Well, the reason why I say that is because the R&M equipment, the buildings and ground only has 5,000 in it. I'm sorry, 7,200 in it. So if it was something that we needed to purchase for the buildings and ground, we could use the emergency fund
Well, you could
Well,
could
or your
replenish.
capital projects.
I guess that's not my issue. My issue, we're obviously gonna pay the bill, because I
Yeah.
agree
Yeah.
with you. If somebody provides a service, and in this case, actual issues a report, there should be some compensation. I guess the question is, I didn't know that I was gonna get a bill for $750, whatever his daily rate.
I knew he wasn't coming out for free, that's for sure.
Right. But there should be some communication between you, Manny, and myself as the Greens Committee that, listen, we're going to be doing this, and the cost is whatever. And does it make sense to do that? And I think Manny and I would.
Well, the
say
reason I had
yes.
this done is because it was requested of me. I get a telephone call that say, "Okay, Steve, set up an appointment. We want Mel to come out and see you." I don't call Mel up and say, "Mel, what's your fee?" so I can tell them whether it's approved or not. But in the future, anytime now moving forward, knowing this, anytime there's a request to have this type of thing done, then I'm going to have I'm going to say, okay, we'd like you to come out for X number of time, how much is it gonna cost?
Correct.
Okay.
And usually if I'm having that kind of discussion with you, Manny and I would agree that a certain fee is reasonable. And it just, I gotta make sure the communication's going back and forth, that our free cash is going to disappear if we don't keep track of it, that's all. And 1,900, I think it's, the fee is correct and reasonable. It's just, somehow it should happen before. Does it make sense?
Yeah, when we okay Mel to do something, we already knew what he's gonna charge. So therefore, we don't have to hear that, because we know we're gonna get a bill for $300 for every day that he comes here.
Right, absolutely.
So that's just why we make that decision.
And every time I have the discussion with Mel, I verify
Right.
what his fee is.
But we didn't have any
It goes way
discussion
back
with these
when.
people, right? That's the problem.
And the only discussion I had with Steve was, what was the trip out from Tim and Mike on September 2nd was gonna cost us? He said, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I did at the
Right,
time.
and you did, but I know now.
$1,924.
I think when Tim had given us that whole proposal too of things that could be done, if I remember it correctly, the last page stated what his hourly/daily rates were.
Yeah.
But I also think that, okay, even if it's an
You're
hourly
right.
rate, what number of hours would we expect for each one of these things to then,
Right.
how much to multiply?
Yeah, I mean, I would think that you would put,
Right.
X number of
Line
hours.
item, cost.
Right.
Time by
A little
that,
more
yeah,
detail.
a little bit more detail, yeah. But I will go off of that page, but in the future, anytime anyone outside of, normal business, which you would, like a salesman comes out, obviously it's part of their routine, I'll get a fee schedule.
Right.
And get the fee schedule verified.
Because I was gonna ask you what's it gonna cost us.
This is
to have
cost you
Mike pay.
$700.
I did approve the bill. Going forward, it will be probably negative balance on this account. And at the end of the year, we'll decide whether we need to pull money for reserves or whatever. Okay. Does that make sense?
Does make sense.
Okay. So now we have operations update.
All right, with the sheet submitted, we just did the revenue, the budget we're gonna go over. With the budget, we'll discuss the rates. As far as where we're at with the operation, we're winding down. We're already putting away tables and chairs, tents coming down, we're supposed to come down this week. The grill's down for the season. We're depleting our inventories of all our food and beverage products to a minimum to avoid any shrinking curd. We are in basically the shutdown prep mode while still servicing our customers as the volume presents itself. In the operation of things, we're fueling carts and setting aside carts because the volume isn't what it has been in the peak season. So we're getting them gassed and putting the pen in lockdown so that if Norm has time, he can start picking them off and doing maintenance on them or whatever. And then if we should need them for a day for high volume, like the day after Thanksgiving, we'll pull out a couple carts, put them back in rotation, fill them with gas, and then put them back and lock them down for the season. So we're managing that process as the volume of play determines what our needs are. So as far as the pro shop.
Let me interrupt. Club car, where are they on the 20 carts?
Well, those weren't gonna come until spring, if I'm not mistaken. When they weren't coming this year, they were coming next
In the
season.
spring, right.
Yeah.
right.
I can contact him.
And with.
And I'm gonna check in too and see if they're modifying the engines on those things to see where we're at, cause I was speaking with Steve, if we can get to a point where they've modified it and went back to a better engine, or get out of the engine that they're in to a better engine, we might wanna review getting rid of this fleet and getting new cots, because these things have been a nightmare. This is the first model with this new engine, and we've never experienced
I
anything
mean,
like
it's
this.
just, I mean, every week,
14 carts a week.
4 or 5, 6 carts, 7 carts, they just, stop working.
Yep.
And what's their say about that?
No, they don't know.
They don't
just
give
keep-
you an answer?
They come
What
down.
they're
they
saying is,
fix
this is
them.
how much it's gonna cost
Yeah.
to fix it.
Yep. They put a pot in, it fixes it. It
And
works.
unfortunately, the ones that are having the most particular problem are out of warranty. So,
So-
These carts are 2017,
17, I think, 2017, 2018. yeah.
so,
5 years.
so they're putting the same engine in 18 and 19 and 20.
The new carts, with the selling point on these carts is they were fuel injected, and they used less gas than the other carts.
Right.
I don't know what the mod was on the engine as to what, I'm not a mechanic, so I can't tell you the specifics of it, but I can research it for you and let you know.
Because, excuse me for interrupting, but 2017 is 7 years ago. And
Yeah, but our older carts, we have a Green Hornet that never needs repairing,
I
and we've
know
had that
this.
cart for 15
Yeah,
years.
and
I know,
So-
so we have a test of the 2017 models. And it's been 7 years, and what is Club Car doing? Have they made the changes?
Not sure. That's what I'm gonna ask him, see
Because we've got carts on order, and I'm
Yes.
like,
right.
we shouldn't.
Well, I think we signed that order, so we will be getting those carts.
But they need to tell you something about.
Yeah,
Upgrade.
What they guarantee.
Yeah, yeah. And that's ridiculous.
yeah.
That
No, I am gonna go
carts.
back on that, because all of this, obviously, we have recorded with them the repairs that they've made,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna go back and
Oh,
check the
really?
records
Oh.
for
Well, a lot of
for
times,
20 years.
there's been
Look at
several.
this last 2 years of service charges that we've had, and I need something. I either need that
Does
taken off
that
the
include what
price.
he's doing to the carts
No.
too? Oh.
No,
Well, the service.
but he knows what his.
I know.
Ours, we go. We have each
have both.
thing done to each card is entered into the
Oh, okay.
the system.
All right.
There's been
So
a lot
there-
of.
there's some
Yes.
kind of.
Yeah.
We have their records
Accounting.
to go on
Yeah,
and his
there's
records.
some kind of path
But you
leading
can
to.
definitely see
Yeah.
the amount of money that
What you've
we're
done
spending.
too.
Yes.
Okay. all
Well,
right.
from them, if they do anything, we you get invoiced unless it's warranted.
Yeah, them, but
Um,
from you, there's
Yeah,
a
I mean
trail.
our batteries, the
Oh, okay.
batteries, the tire replacements, and the work that Norm does, whether it be a part replacement or what. There's a lot of the connecting parts on these engines, on that particular engine with throttle cables and everything else. It's a little dinky piece of plastic. And especially with the amount of use that these cars are getting
Well,
right away,
and that's true too.
it wears
The
out.
volume of usage that we've had for the last 3 years is pretty high, but these things should be able to handle.
Yeah, still.
Yeah, and some of these, and I'd be honest with you, I mean, some of the people out there beat these carts.
And I'm sure that's going to be their comeback.
Well, it will be,
All
but
things considered.
Yeah.
they should be better. Point blank, period.
Absolutely. And-
Yeah.
And we need to know whether they're gonna make
Yeah,
a
no, I'm gonna-
commitment to do that or not.
Mm-hmm.
If not, we'll go the easy go.
Yeah, go
We'll
somewhere
go
else.
somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because if we're gonna get 20 carts in the spring,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Well, we're
I
gonna
don't
pull
know if we
records.
want.
He's gonna get the 20. He's gonna get the
Yeah,
20
Where
that.
I work, we've got 2 one-year-old maintenance club carts, and they're always breaking down, constantly need repairs, so I'm not a big fan of that vendor right now.
Yeah, they switched something and it didn't work out for them. Because I'm sure they're seeing this across the board. It's not
What's the
just
thing about
us.
the green one? I was trying to see, again, where I work, they had previous ones that, for years, without
Those things
any
were like
issue.
dune buggies.
And now we've
Well,
got
The old
some
ones.
of the older ones, which had a regular kind of standard engine. I mean, these newer carts, the President, they don't have oil filters. which I thought was kind of odd. Because even though you
What are
change
they,
the oil,
air-cooled?
huh?
Air cooled? Or where's the,
Well, they have oil because we changed the
Oh.
oil, but there's no filter,
no filter?
which to me didn't make much sense on a new engine. But
It's all
you
right
know,
for a
it's
push-forward.
little things like that where that green cart. I mean, it's a regular old standard kind of gas engine, and you can't
You can't kill
you
it.
can't
Kill
kill
it.
anything.
We gas that thing every week, and I love getting that one when we
Well,
gas.
I steal that one back for pulling the drag mat because it pulls the drag mat and it doesn't leave tire marks. The gators are going to leave tire marks when we drag.
Dan, originally going back, I think the first or second year of the leases, we used to pay a service contract or something per cart. And I don't know what it entailed. See if they still have those.
Mm-hmm. Well, they
Based
do.
on- Based on
well,
everything we're spending.
I think. Well, I did that study last year with it, and it was $10,000 was the cost. We would have to spend $10,000 or more to be to the good of what their contract is, because that's what their contract was. It was like $10,000 a year.
That, yeah, with labor and
Yeah,
parts,
our
the
break
whole-
even would have been if we were fixing ourselves and spending 15,000. Then if we got the $10,000 program with them, it's worth
It'd be
our
worth
while.
it, yeah.
But I'm not sure where we're at this point.
Okay, sorry.
We'll find out.
Just tell them to fix the things. Yeah.
Put another engine.
Make a better one.
Well, I have made that recommendation to them that whatever engines you were using, go back to that vendor and get those put back in the carts because this one is not effective. And then to move into the pro shop, sourcing products this season was a challenge. We just got in our golf balls in the end of October that we were out of stock for several weeks throughout the season because you couldn't get them. So as far as what we have in stock right now, we're fully stocked on. We have gloves, balls, hats, towels, and I am sourcing shoes, apparel, and shirts. And those are in production as they were sourcing the materials to make those products. So by spring, we should be up to speed. And then software. Let's see, I think I have a breakdown of the sheet. This was the options from Golf Now, but I did have 4 up. It's a software company, a competitor of Golf Now, and that is the system that is used at Allendale currently, as well as a few other golf courses. And they'll be getting a proposal to me relatively soon so we can sit down and review. They don't, 4UP has the same, it's cloud-based software. It's not Excel-based as Golf Now is. They have the similar reporting features that we need for a nightly basis reporting to Town Hall. He is reviewing and checking if they are Munis compatible so they could just pull the data right from the system into the town's Munis system, hopefully. I think he said he was pretty sure that they do because they have some municipal accounts that do that. But he's gonna get me some prices and we can sit down and review if we wanna go that route. Or if we can get maybe Golf Now to be a little bit more competitive with their pricing. The new 4UP company does not require any trade times like Golf Now does.
So we have to give them nothing? No tee times?
You give them an annual fee, similar to what we did with Golf Now to start. You just paid your annual fee and you got the services provided. The new systems from 4UP is a la carte, so if you have a cafeteria, they can build that into your program. That costs you X amount. If you need this, but ours is a pretty basic system, so I wouldn't think that we would be on the high end. And his rough estimate was this system is between $2,000 and $10,000. So with our basic needs, I would probably see that we would fall somewhere between, I would say, $3,000, I would think, annually with them. I'm guessing. I don't have a number, but based on what my experience is running that place, I don't see us as being too there aren't too many intricate details of our operation with regards to our POS system. So when that comes forward, I will present that to you guys. That is Golf Now's, and they have stated that if we want to negotiate, they're open to some sort of negotiation. And I did address that with the sales rep, saying, listen, you're going to have to be awfully aggressive with your negotiations if you want to maintain this account, basically. Because I have been asked by the town and my golf committee to review all options and present them with some options. So that's what I'm doing. So go back to talk to your bosses and sharpen your pencils.
Do we have an idea, you know, no, I mean, answer now, but like, how many rounds are booked through like the Golf Now app versus like other ways? Only because, to me, on the face of it, that's really the only thing we'd be potentially losing from them, right?
Well,
It doesn't seem like 4UP doesn't have the presence that people have on their phones. Like
right.
Golf Now
Well,
does.
so I would, in her mind, she stated that she's given us $500,000 worth of business.
500?
Yeah, and I said, I think you're a little bit out of tune with your market and your product, to be honest with you, because my sales haven't gone up $500,000, so you haven't given me what you think you've given me. I says, but what I have given you is a $2.49 service charge that you get to charge my customers to use your system for $500,000 worth of business. So if you take $500,000, if they're charging $50 a round, they're making $2.49 on every one of those customers that are our customers. So we're a draw to them. Now, what have they added in addition to us? I'm sure, yeah, there are some people there are golf gypsies out there looking for the Golf Now hot deal, and we'll get that guy, and we'll get that revenue for that day, for that foursome.
Yeah, no, I know it's tough to quantify. Like,
It
if
is
somebody
very
uses
difficult
Golf
to
Now
quantify,
because
because it's a train.
I was gonna go there anyway, and it's easy, versus, hey, I happen to find it because I wanna go play golf somewhere
Correct.
different.
So
And then
if
drop
you're
it.
an avid golfer and you use Golf Now, again, we show up alphabetically. Acushnet, we're at the top of a list. If you're local, if it says nearby, we'll show up on their list. The new system is not a Golf Now, not a Golf Now company, so they don't have Golf Now. But
But if it provides
But we
everything
can
else
also push our customers to book online via our website, which has a booking engine, and this
Exactly.
company does have a booking
Right.
engine that will coincide with our current website. So we can still lead our customers to book online. You book once with Acushnet. If you're a regular customer, you hit it as a favorite. Now it's in your phone. When you go to golf, you just hit the favorite button. There's Acushnet. Book your tee time with no service charge. However, if we did want to charge a service charge, we can add that to our program if we wanted to.
You know, I think it would be interesting to at least see the, in writing, so that the 4UP
The new
proposals, so
proposal.
we can just see
Yeah.
the real difference between the two.
But I guess from what they were saying, with the way, the aggressiveness at which Golf Now is going after their current customers, they're seeing a huge transition from a lot of Golf Now customers coming to 4UP as new customers and starting the systems. I did speak with them with regards to installment, and they can go into the computer, set it all up. We can get everything lined up, still use Golf Now, and then eventually go, shut off Golf Now, we're gonna use this system, and we're already live and ready to go. So they can upload their software to our computer, get us all tested, and reports created, and everything as we want it, and we can flip the switch whenever we want, if that's what we decide to do.
So where are we with golf now?
Golf Now is awaiting, I guess, some sort of negotiation with us, from us, as to what is our counter to their three options here. You want to pay them $500 a month? Do you want to pay them $1,000 a month? Or do you want to give them an additional trade?
So who's meeting with whom?
We can have them come in if you'd like to review, or you can do it on your greens committee. Have them meet at the golf course and sit down and talk to them. and walk through some sort of negotiations.
But Jamie was gonna get involved with that.
Right.
Jamie was gonna get involved with that.
So I can have him come down and meet with Jamie.
Why don't you meet with Jamie
Mm-hmm.
and bring him up to speed as to what,
I want to get the proposal from 4 up too, so he can kind of have an apples to
well,
apples.
you can still bring him up to date on what's
Yes.
going on. And if he feels there's a need to negotiate, I guess you can wait for 4 up, but make contact with Jamie and let
Mhm.
him know what's going on.
And I have a copy of our original contract with Golf Now. So
But those are supposed to only be good for 3 years.
So we'll.
they've never given us another one. So right now it's a standing contract, and it says here there's an 8% limit that they can go up on their price. These far exceed 8%.
So are you waiting for them to contact you, or?
For Golf Now, I wanted to have our meeting, discuss this, and see what you guys were thinking before I met with them again and said, well, this is where we're leaning towards, this is what we need from you, we're not gonna go that high, so where are you willing to come down
Are they
to?
meeting with you, or you?
Yep. I've been discussing it on the phone. They did come down and meet and did an initial G1 showcase and walk through the system. This is the new system coming, however, they didn't say anything about prices, and they kind of left dancing out the door. All right, we'll talk to you later. And then they sent this out a week later, and I flipped. I was like, you're out of your mind. If I did this kind of price increase to my customers, there'd be nobody golfing here, and you wouldn't make any money, and nor would I.
But I got to you one time saying that you not to negotiate with him, to contact Jamie, because
Yeah,
Jamie was.
I haven't negotiated with them.
Okay. The way you're saying, I think they've
Well,
been
yeah,
talking to you and
I
negotiating.
spoke with Dave. I told him, I said, I'm gonna set a hard line. So first line is, we're not budging right now. Now, if we wanna move forward from there, we can move forward from
But-
there.
In my own opinion, you should keep in touch with Jimmy
Mhm.
and find out exactly where he's at and what you're doing and what we're gonna do it.
Sure.
Because we've been discussing that with him, and he's the one that told us to now let you negotiate the contract.
Right. No, I don't plan on, I don't plan on negotiating it. However, I did notice that I think I was the one that signed this contract for some reason.
But then that was yesterday, there was nothing.
No, I'm just saying, I didn't realize that I was,
That
but
was,
somehow.
that was what? How many years ago was that?
It was this is your original, one of your original contracts with them. That's the one that they're running with.
So what year was that?
Well, the first date on it says 01, but it couldn't have been 01 because I didn't get it till 02.
Yeah, right, that's it. Well, when you sat down, Golf Now sat down with you and Brian.
We didn't sign anything. They
I
said
know,
this.
but
They said that we were going. This was a trial basis upgrade, and Brian was like, "Let's give it a go. Let's check it out. Let's see what you got." And then we saw the conversion. So the $500,000 they claim that they've is just a transition from your phone customer that was calling for tea times to your mobile phone customer that's using apps and booking online. And that just took off. Everybody books online now. Everybody. It's just easy to do. You're talking to your friends, having lunch. Hey, let's book a tea time next week on Tuesday. Bang, done.
Quick.
Yeah,
Instant.
that is the first pass, I don't like any of their proposals, really. I think they're all.
Aggressive.
Way out of whack.
Very aggressive.
Yeah. they are.
Way out of whack.
They are out of whack.
I'm
How
not
many,
interested- not
just a
interested in
quick
giving
one,
two
how many
days.
slots do we give them?
They get one full foursome every day. But as I shared with Ed, the idea that when we went through COVID, our customers were booking so fast, they weren't even making the sheet. So I have to pull that report for how many golf rounds we've done through Golf Now for the last I'll do it annually, and then I'll do it the last 3 years combined, so you can see what the total number
And
is.
this new company wants what?
They don't do any trade times.
We
They
don't have to
just,
give them anything
no
like
trade
that?
tea times, you just pay them their
That's a
invoices.
freaking no-brainer if it comes in.
If it's something the customer can access easily,
Mm-hmm.
fine.
Yeah, right.
If
I
you
mean, you're-
can't access it,
You're gaining a foursome every day, which could be anywhere from,
Could be $12,000 in a year, could be more, could be a
Yeah.
little bit less, could be
Right.
52,000 if they booked all of them. I ran that.
oh, you did? All right.
No,
Oh.
yeah, without saying the name, a semi-competitor in Dartmouth is using 4UP. So if you go online and just see how easy it is to
Yeah,
pretend to book
check
a tea
that
time
out,
with them.
That's a good point, yeah.
That's actually where I got the name from Dana, because I was looking to go there with a friend. I'm like, oh, this is what they use now, and looked down the bottom to see who the software provider was.
That's a good idea.
So
Always thinking, Dave.
So if another local golf course has switched to them, and it seems like it's working, you might get a good way to at least go online and see how.
Yeah,
it
You know what,
goes.
I'll have Isaac call Juicy over there and see what he thinks of it. See if he, if he's, if it's
Right,
working
if you
out
know
well
the
for
name,
him.
right, that's a reference like that is, that you can trust is always a good.
And I did speak to the pro from Crestwood. He came by the other day, and I was chatting with him, and they use 4UP, and he said that he loves it. He goes, I wouldn't do business with golf now if you paid me the way they attack you. Once they get their claws in you, but let's check it out.
we can see, right?
See what the options are.
They're trying.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now we got Steve, maintenance update.
Just to go quickly here. We're basically headed into winter mode. At this time of the year, for the conditions we have and the health of the turf, fairly pleased with that. I think across the board, we're in good health, in good condition, and ready for the winter. We've been doing our winter prep about the last month. The pump station and irrigation system has been winterized. That happened on November 8th. Then we'll be completing our final mowings for all turf tomorrow. Tomorrow is also the day that we lay off our non-full-time employees. We have left in the winterization plan fungicide applications for snow mold to greens, collars, approaches, and tees and par 3 fairways. We'll be doing that in December. And then once we complete that, we'll be top dressing both greens and tees to basically put them in bed for the winter. One thing I would recommend, I know it's kind of hit or miss, but as we approach the end of the season, I think we should probably continue with our 90-degree rule. Some people understand it and use it, and I think it's been very helpful. Other people don't quite get it, but having some do it and some is better than having none do it at all. Just a few items under our equipment. We did have the Transpro trailer was ordered from Toro. It was tentatively scheduled to be delivered the first week of November. That has been delayed, and I'm called them the beginning of this week, and I'm waiting to hear back from them as to when the new estimated date was. And as you can tell from what Dana had mentioned and what I've been mentioning, it's been a nightmare trying to get things delivered, trying to figure out when pieces of equipment are going to be available. Everybody now is placing their 2024 orders now because they don't know when they're going to get equipment. In light of that, and I keep on pressing and I can't get any straight answers, I said, well, we've got our John Deere sprayer. It's a 300-gallon unit. We have some issues with the pressure regulation on the unit. So I called up our John Deere rep and I asked him, I said, what actually is holding up the new sprayers? And he says, it's got nothing to do with the sprayer, it's the traction unit or the Pro Gator. They can't get the Pro Gators. I said, well, I got a Pro Gator. I said, how much is it going to cost me for you to renovate it and update it? So he got back to me at the beginning of this week, and this price includes them picking up the sprayer, taking it to their facility, retrofitting it and modernizing it, and then bringing it back to us. The cost of that would be $26,500, maybe a little bit less. I put a little bit extra in there just in case maybe they find the transmission needs fluid changing or something like that. So what that would provide you with is a second 300-gallon sprayer with a modern pumping system and a modern controlling system at that cost, which when compared to the one from that we look to replace. If you bought the John Deere new, the price is about the same as the Twirl, at $71,000. So we could send this machine out and get it back for $26,500 and not have to spend the other approximately 50 grand on a sprayer and have the second sprayer. So I said, well, they said I can't, I can't agree to anything right now, but I wanted to put this out there because this is something that we could do. Take that sprayer off the list and save ourselves some money. Because, like I said, there's nothing wrong with the utility vehicle itself. It was the spraying and pressure monitoring system which didn't allow us to spray at the appropriate rate because the pressure monitoring system was going haywire. So I wanted to put that out there. I mean, I think it's a good idea. Whether or not the committee thinks it's a good idea, wants to move forward with it. We don't have to make, if we're going to make a decision, it'd be nice to make it some type in the winter because they pick the unit up and they do all the work on it and they bring it back to us.
And you would then cancel the order for the Toro?
Yes. Oh yeah, I mean, once an okay for this was given, I canceled the order from the Toro right away.
No.
And then that way, I mean, it will enable us to do be a lot more efficient on, getting fairway sprayed and getting wetting agents out on fairways and help to, you're basically putting out 600 gallons every hour and a half as opposed to 300. So we'd be able to finish, and normally it takes 6 tanks to spray fairways. It takes me a day and a half. We'd be able to finish in a day, probably before lunch.
Why is that?
Excuse me?
Why is it gonna double your efficiency?
Well, it doubles the efficiency because then you'd have 2 300-gallon tanks. We have the Smithco, which we currently use all the time now, and then we have the John Deere, which is another 300-gallon tank. So each time, Kevin and I would be, instead of one person only spraying, you'd have 2 people spraying. You'd have 600 gallons going out.
You don't spray with the other one at all?
No, well,
So
I don't
the thing
spray
is
with it
when-
because the pressure regulation isn't reliable. And what happens is, in order to operate that machine, you're based on flow rate, ground speed, and pressure in the tank. And you're supposed, if you go, for instance, for that machine, you should be going at 4 miles an hour, 45 to 50 psi, and that'll give you a rate of 1.4 gallons, or excuse me, 1.5 gallons per 1,000 square feet, based on the type of nozzle you use. Well, every time I go to calibrate it, it doesn't give you that calibration number because the pressure gauge won't hold the pressure. You'll start out at 50, and then all of a sudden be going along, and it'll go down and go down. There's a little switch there, it's supposed to push up to increase the pressure, but it doesn't go up, and it won't move. Then when you start to get below 40 psi, then the application rate isn't right, and basically you're wasting all the material you have in the tank because you can't get the proper application rate. And it's been a problem. Rich tried to fix it. We got it working for a little bit. Norm's tried to fix it, and it's been the same recurring problem. So I looked at that and I said, there's nothing matter with the traction unit. The Pro Gator's fine, and so on. And it used to be our primary sprayer until it started acting up. And the other thing about it, which was a problem at times, is it's a 4-wheel drive sprayer, so it would automatically kick into 4-wheel drive. So I'd be going across the green, it would kick into 4-wheel drive. When it does that, tires scuff on the green. And the only way you can get it out of 4-wheel drive is to back up, then pull forward. Well, I can't stop spraying in the middle of the green and back up and then pour forward again because I'll end up killing grass because I'll over apply. Because I'm not, I don't know anybody that can be that precise about getting that exact spot.
Sounds like
Long story
vandalism.
short, huh?
It sounds like vandalism, superintendent vandalism.
Yeah, could be. But so the long and short of it was that because of those couple of factors, I said, well, I just don't feel comfortable using that machine, and I'm not gonna put, basically, amounts to a couple $1,000s worth of material in the tank and not get the desired result out of it. But with this, we can upgrade to the current system, which would replace, or with the modern system, which would replace that pressure system, and we wouldn't have that problem at all. Plus, that price includes a new pump, it includes a new foamer, and so on. So that's why I decided to look at it and see if that would be, something plausible that we could, which would save us that money and be something to have available to use in the spring. They can do that work over the winter.
If we're essentially getting a new sprayer, if the rest of the unit is in good condition, at $45,000 less money than we were about to spend.
Sounds like a bargain. Sounds like a
It
bargain.
sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
So, and then at the end of for the rest of my little report, I just had some recommended purchases and projects. These things have been on previous agendas, with the exception of one thing down there. And it was, we either ran out of time or we didn't get a chance just to go over them. Last time we spoke, there were radios. These include radios for both the pro shop and the maintenance department. The one new item on there, is I saw this the other day and I thought it would help with our bunker edging and work that we want to do this winter. Turfco makes a little machine called an edge right, which enables you to put an edge on the bunker as opposed to doing the method that we do with the foot and the shovel and whatnot. You can set the depth, you can set, you can make a different angle. A lot of people use them, say they've really stepped up the process, made the job a lot easier. We see the associated price there. I just re-mentioned the refurbishing of the 300-gallon sprayer. I do think it's important at some point that we get a GPS map of the golf course. It would be a significant assistance with the irrigation system, in troubleshooting the irrigation system, but it would also be significant for measuring areas and redoing. If people have, for instance, if people say, okay, well, you want to, we've discussed in the past about shrinking some of these fairways. Well, with the GPS, you can put that data in there, and you can make an overlay on top of it and see what the shrink would look like. I believe it was a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, I had an estimate. I had a good price. That I put that down there as an estimate because prices for everything have gone up. And one thing about GPS mapping is that the winter is the best time to do that. There's no leaves on the trees, but also it's easier for the person to go out and what Greg does, he goes to each sprinkler head, takes the measurement, the GPS measurement at the sprinkler head, so you have an exact location. Then you can put your piping system in and everything else. And we do have two problem irrigation field controllers, one on the 15th green and one on the 16th green. They don't make the parts that need to be replaced in these field controllers anymore. Our field controllers are outdated. We can get new they're not new, they're refurbished. What they do is they take an older field controller unit and then they upgrade it to all the newer parts. Instead of trying to replace the older parts. The combined cost for that is listed there, is $5,500. And then the projects, we do have some additional irrigation we'd like to put on the fourth fairway. I put the 15 pond green edge down there because I didn't know where we were going to go from here on that. We do have some cart path work that we tossed around and discussed whether or not we're going to do any of that. I'd have to get new prices from Dan because I'm sure that asphalt prices are different. We have a substantial amount of tree work that I'd like to tackle, or at least start tackling. But, you know, again, without getting an okay, I'm not gonna start on that. And then we do have 2 isolation valves in the second and the fifth hole that were ordered way back in March, that finally came in last month. So I'm going to call, I've already talked to Dan Tibbetts. I'm going to making sure that our quote to do that is the same as it was before we go ahead and say yes. So, but he did order those, so he has those, you know, for us, so those valves are sitting there waiting for us. So basically what that, I mean, those are purchases I think we need, should significantly consider, projects we could consider, and I'm putting that out there so people have a chance to mull that over. But I would like to get some idea of what tree work we're going to be able to do and when, because I'll be moving on some of that within the next 2 to 3 weeks. We've been doing little stuff with stuff that we normally do and cutting back at edges, but we have some significant work to the right side of the fourth hole if we're going to do anything there. Any of the associated cart paths, Dan has looked at a couple of them, and he said, I don't feel comfortable putting the cart path down here. I'm not going to cart path over top of roots. So, and the winter, he did mention to me that the winter time would be the best time for him to come in and do the base and get all that prep work done. So when we did decide to pave, that he could come right in and pave, and he wouldn't have any extra work doing there. So I think that the radios and the bunker edger and the costs are there. I mean, if I was to prioritize, I would like to get the irrigation parts for the fourth fairway. That includes sprinkler heads, pipe, wire, and that's us doing all the work. There's no, I did include a trencher cost in there. Depending on how it looks over there, Kevin and I might just use the backhoe, because we're going to run the pipe right along the edge of the cart path. So we can stockpile, we can put pipe material on the cart path and then backfill. And so that would chop about 300 some odd bucks out of that. So not renting the trencher for a day. But these are all, I mean, and I want to start putting edges on these bunkers and doing some of this work while the ground's not frozen. So these are all things that, all the projects with the exception of 15, the cart path work, these are all stuff that we're going to, be doing in-house with the exception of isolation valve. We don't have the equipment to do that.
Where do we go?
I mean, to me, this is exactly why we put that article in front of town meeting too, right? To start addressing things that need to be done, right? And having a list like, hey, yep, this is exactly what needs to be done. We're going to do it, and we can clearly see how it's going to affect the course in a positive manner by doing these things. So, I don't see, other than, like I said, other than 15, what we're going to do there.
Yeah.
Most of these, and confirming with Dan with the cart pass, whatever, but all the stuff that you have the pricing on and things that you want to do, and verifying the trees, I think they're all worthy things to do.
Will they all come out the articles? Like the radios?
To me, I don't see why not. I mean, that's part of the infrastructure and operation. It's something that's kind of.
Yeah, and both of us are sorely in need of. The radios don't last for an hour. Hour and a half.
Our guys got to come in and swap them out, put them back on the charger, grab another radio.
I think that's a necessity. I think your edger would probably be a great idea.
What?
The edger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know Manny likes those sharp edges, so.
Very sharp.
In the traps, right?
We don't see that too often.
Well, we will now.
That would be another thing to go in the shop.
No, I don't think.
To do what?
That would be another toy to go on the shelf.
No.
No, I don't collect toys. I mean, none of these are toys. I mean, I don't see a new truck for Steve down there somewhere.
I'm gonna have a
Next meeting's in the pond.
I'm gonna go there with the
It's
camera.
some maintenance facilities. Not a barn. Barn is where my
I'll make a
grandfather
motion
used
to
to keep
move forward
cows.
on the radios, the bunker edger,
Mhm.
the refurbishing of the sprayer,
Mm-hmm,
replacing the irrigation field controllers,
yeah.
and the parts for the irrigation system.
I'll agree with that. I agree.
Me too.
As a second.
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 So we got,
We're all second.
all in favor?
Aye.
It's a unanimous second.
So the only thing we didn't go really agree on, Reg, is that mapping yet.
Yeah, that can work.
Just
What,
one-
what trees do you want them to do?
Let's,
Well, they'll go out and,
Did you
Okay.
mark them?
well, I've marked them and they've been marked for so long the tapes have fallen off.
All right, I know number 8,
Well, number 8, I can make it simple. You know where the forward tee is?
right?
Right on the edge of where that forward tee is, if we're gonna put that cart path
Every
over
tree of
there,
that row.
every tree on between that fairway and that 9th tee is gonzo. I can leave a couple big ones to see if you want them there, but there's no way he's gonna be able to cut that cart
You
path.
can
in
see the
there.
cart path.
I know, it's all,
Yes.
they're all pine.
But
Yeah,
if we keep the car path on the right side,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
but the request that Nancy and I made to you was to get a comparison of the cost of the right side versus the left side.
Yeah, I think
I
he
did that once. I did that
I
once
think it was
before.
like
right?
$4,000.
Yeah,
if
but
I'm
my
not mistaken.
my comparison right now isn't any good because I'm sure the price of the asphalt and everything's gone up. I can go back and look, but I'm pretty sure I got a left side
did.
length.
So did we vote on keeping it on the right side?
I think we wanted to go with the right side.
Well, that was until Dan looked at it and said, if we do it on the right side, all those trees gotta come down. So
Yeah, well, but like you said, he's not. He said, he said I can come in here and I can do this, but if you leave those trees there,
right. So he gave you the estimates.
But
Dan looked at
How's he
it.
gonna get the trees?
on the other side is
How are we
trees
going to
also.
get the trees down?
Yeah, on the left side there's trees.
well,
Yeah.
what I'll do. Well, the left side,
There's
there's
scrub trees.
not quite as many.
Yeah, but is
because
there a
tiny.
wetland there? That,
Well, that's not a wetland. That's a drainage area.
okay.
That was a wetland, basically a creation. I think.
Property area as far as the left side goes to the pig farm?
Excuse me.
That property line, we got space.
Yeah, well, you'd have to run down the left side and you have to go behind the green.
We have to go to the owner to
Well-
propose this? If we
No,
go
I
that
think the
route?
only thing that we have to do is the Department of Public Works like to come through their side to do that side.
Yeah, well, I believe it was 2 years ago. I'd have to go back and look at my notes, but I already talked to the fellow, and he said
Yeah.
it would be okay.
Right.
But you have to talk to him at the time you're going to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, we could do something. I mean, we could come down the right side of the 9th hole in the existing cart path, but you'd have to. I mean, we got some big potholes there that have to be fixed anyway. Dan fixed them once, but he
Yeah,
thinks
they're
they've
huge.
settled already.
Massive.
And but they're I think what they were
It's
is
dangerous.
like on the second hole, spoil piles. And
Mhm.
I mean I can't even go through them slow with my. I mean
No.
I got to basically stop to go through them now. But in answer to the tree, I mean what I would do with the trees is I could either get Dan's help or I just pick one tree and drop it first and make myself an opening. And then I'd start, dropping the other trees on top of it, and then drop one or two, clean them up, pick them up, pull them out of the way. Or if I cut them, put them off to the side. Dan said when he's down there doing work, just pick them up with the excavator, drop them in the back of his truck, and that's what he did with the other ones that we had to take down
That's
from the
whole
storm
number.
damage. He picked them up with the excavator, put them in the truck, and they certain times during the year they get a big tub grinder over there. He just dropped it in the
What
tub.
is actually the total amount of trees they gotta cut on eight?
How many?
8, I'd say there's probably 15, 20 trees.
There's a lot.
So now,
That's the
could that,
cluster you have just behind the 9th tee.
There's the if you look at the 9th tee, the cart path comes in front of the forward tee and then it takes a turn. Right there's a big pine on the corner, and that's where we would start. And there's a little cut through cart path that goes over to the 9th tee
Yeah.
that I use sometimes when I'm spraying. From that,
If it's
basically
not
from
flooded,
that opening all the way up,
So
and then.
gonna
And
clean
then
all the
some of those
trees?
oaks on the right side of the approach, because you'll see that in Tim's report too. We're starting to lose grass in that approach and in that right side. It happens every year. It gets wet. If it stays dry, we're so-so over there. But once it gets, there's no sunlight over there. You can take, you can get the app on I'm going to put it on my phone. It's called the Sun Seeker app. And you can get on your phone, you set the phone up there, and you pick the time of year it is. And you place that picture on where you want the sunlight to come through, and it shows you different hours of the day how much sun you're going to come through, but it also gives you a line. So if you want sun to come through here, this, and this has to come out. Or the same thing, we got to go 30 yards off the right of that green into the woods to get any effect. There's about 25, 30 trees over there that would have to come down to get some sun.
We gotta be careful with property line.
Yeah. The Ed provided me with that map, so I got to go out there and find those markers if I can. I got my little metal detector.
One thing we don't want to do is turn that into links.
No. No, it's. Really, for the most part, you wouldn't. It's one spot there by that corner. Once they were down and it was cleaned up, most people aren't going to notice it. There's a couple of them that Mother Nature took down for us, and the wind blew them into the. Luckily, they went that way and didn't come out onto the green.
So which, are you talking about 8 or 4?
Well, I was talking about 8, but I just mentioned that, Manny asked about number of trees, and I said, well, of course, the 4th hole is going to have quite a few trees on the right side of the green, too. But the 8th green, I would say, if I had to estimate, I'd say there's probably between 15 and 20 trees.
On 4?
On 8.
No, on 8.
On 8.
On 8.
What's
So
on
in other
4?
words, it's going to be from the forward tees.
Yep.
Yeah.
Forward, it's going to be, you're going to see the
Tee box
the
on
tee
number
box is
9.
on number 9.
Right.
Yeah.
But what is going to happen when the water comes down that way and floods 8?
The water already comes down there and floods, irregardless
Sucks
of
right
those
out,
trees.
draws right out
Yeah,
of that
but
hill.
without any trees or any roots to absorb some of that water, what's going to happen?
The water doesn't come from that
No,
part.
no.
The water comes
From the hill.
from, if you're standing on the tee, about the middle of the white tee, if you're facing this way towards the green, middle of the tee, you go directly into the woods,
Right.
that's where all that water pulls.
Mhm.
And that's how it comes across. And there's a drain pipe in there. There's a 6-inch drain. Every time it rains, I go down there and open it up because the pine needles clog the front of it. It goes underneath the cart path in between the tees, and it exits out on the other side.
Of 8.
But the pipe comes like this, and the end of the pipe goes up in the air. I don't know who put the pipe in, but so we clean both sides out so the water flows through. But the water doesn't come between. It originates flooding from, like Dana said, it comes down the hill from 9, and it all collects in that area to the right of the 9th hole
Right,
tee.
right.
If you'll notice, there's a portion of the rough on that side that comes out, and it's about
Right.
5 feet tall.
Right.
The reason it's like that is because I can never cut it because I can't even get the walk behind brush mower in there because it sinks.
Wet.
And it's always wet in that spot. So I'm
So
gonna
another
wait till
thing
the
that I
ground
think
freezes.
about is when somebody is teeing off on 9, and somebody is putting on the green on 8, they're going to hear all the noises that's happened because there's no buffer there.
Well, they hear it
You're gonna
anyway
clean that
because
out.
the pine, the majority of the trees that are there are white pines. White pines prune from the bottom up.
Right.
So already
clear
those
to
trees are
7
7 or 8 feet of space up. But unfortunately, because of the slope on the right side and the slope on the other side, sun never has a chance to come in. It raises, sun rises in the east, sets in the west. Well, it comes up, once it gets over the top of those trees, you got about an hour and a half on the 9th tee, and then it gets to the other side, and then those pine trees that we're talking about taking out block it from getting to the tees on that side.
What's on what was the other one? Number 1. What's the trees there?
There's one dead one down there to the right of the fairway bunker, and there's a couple up.
Up near the 18th tee
Yeah.
box? Oh, okay.
Yeah, in that grove between the first green and the 18th tee.
Never a problem with that.
There's other trees along the rough that, depending on when you go to correct the issues with the 18th cart path, that should probably come out too. But at this point in time, especially up by the green, you just can't. It's just making
Between
a mess
18
of that
Green
cart
and
path.
T-box 1.
Yeah, right where the cart path for 18 comes up the hill. If we're gonna redo that cart path at some point, there's a couple trees right along the edge of that cart path that are gonna have to come out. Or should come out. If you leave them in, you're just gonna have the same problem with the roots.
I thought that we were not gonna renew the 18T that near, after the bunker, because that's, if we build a clubhouse, that's the practice green's gonna disappear, and then that's the time to repair that, not now.
Oh, the cart path.
Well, you had, when you and I and Ed had looked at that, you said your conclusion was you didn't think it was a priority at the time.
Right.
So, I mean, I put it, the only reason I put it down there is because it's breaking apart.
Yeah.
And what happens now that it's breaking apart is, of course, the guy in the golf cart doesn't want to be in the spot
No.
where it's breaking apart. So he starts going over towards the green. And now we start getting,
Like
wear on
17,
the,
there's
yeah.
that
Get a
patch.
little
Got it.
sealer and brush it up on the top, and it holds the cracks together.
Well, these are chunks falling off to the side. And I think what, they're on the right-hand side of the cart path going up the hill, and that encourages everybody to go to the left. I mean, if you want to wait, what you could do is you could stop, you go up to the top of the hill and you stop before, at the point where the putting green starts and goes down the hill. I mean, the best way I can look at the little green field controller, if you drew a straight line, you stop there so you don't do that part down at the bottom that you're referring to, and then, but you do the other part so so you can come up there without people infringing on the green, because the green edge in the rough is only so much before you're right there.
Because that area all gonna get mixed up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You things are gonna get moved around,
Oh yeah, well, you got
throw
big
money away, in my opinion.
Well, I'd say if again, I put them down there. I mean, if you say no, then you say no. and
Yeah,
we
we
just
stop,
move on.
go wherever you want.
Yeah.
So if we start to cut trees on 8, you will do that during over the winter.
Yeah.
When will Dan be able to prep?
I'd have to talk to him about that. He said, once things slow down for him,
Right.
unless there's a
Right, the
Yeah.
asphalt plant shut down.
Big snowstorms.
Yeah,
Snowstorms,
exactly.
yeah.
Unless
You're
there's a
not-
big
You're
snowstorm.
not gonna get all, based on what you explained to me, you're not gonna get all those trees down tomorrow.
No.
No.
So, so he wouldn't be able to prep.
For a
Well,
while.
as soon as the ground freezes, the other thing is,
No, hopefully this winter.
I can with my, with what we have I can get all the trees down and clean them up. When he and I looked at it and talked about it, he said, "Don't worry about that." He said, "You just cut it. I'll push it over with the excavator, cut it in half, and I'll pick it up and throw it in the truck."
Right.
So if worst comes to worst, he can come down there and
Right.
pick all that stuff up and throw it in the back of the truck. All I gotta do is cut it in a small enough
So how
section
are
so it
we gonna
fits.
get the excavator down
Yeah.
here? How are we going?
Well, you have two choices. You can either speak with the people who own the property right behind you and come down their road and
Those
come
guys
in,
golf all the time. Like,
come in on
I can
that
talk to them
on
if they
that
come
side on the right as you're facing the green on the right side of the 8th green. Or if you wanted to, you could come all the way down from the 9th green down that way, which would
it'd be
once you
tough
start.
though.
Well, it would be, you'd have to do some cutting and filling with the machine in order to get the bigger trucks down there. You could do it, but you'd have to do a little bit of work
So the
around the sides.
recommendation is come down.
The recommendation is to come through the easiest part would be to come through the woods, or come off the other guy's street and come down that way.
Right.
And Dan said, he said, obviously when I'm finished and I work my way out, I can fix any damage to the driveway. So, but I would have to before you even think about it, I have to go back and talk to that guy, or if you know them guys too, that would help. See what they think. And the last time he told, he said, he just wanted to make sure. I mean, his father takes care of the animals down there, and he's got certain times that he goes
So
down there.
Dan would have to clear out all the earth to get the excavator down.
Excuse me.
Dan will have to clear clear everything so you can get
Come through
the
our property.
excavator down.
Yeah, well, it depends, I mean,
The truck access will be that way also?
yeah, you would, I mean, there's a place, there, you could, up in that back
Yeah,
corner,
it's a nice
you
little-
cut a hole right through there, and you, come right down there where those oaks are on the right side of the 8th hole.
In between 8 and the tee box.
Well, no, you'd be coming down
Behind
8,
the
I mean,
eighth
if,
green.
when you came
Yeah, you
in from
come
that
over
guy's
behind the
property,
tree,
you'd
you
be
got a big
facing the
bend.
back of the
Yeah.
ninth tee.
From the dirt road.
Oh, all right.
Down.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
now you gotta somehow level that out, be able to get a truck down
Yeah, well, I mean, Dan did
Right.
do behind,
He'd
Behind
do,
five,
he'd do the
behind
same
five.
thing he did behind the 5th hole.
yeah.
You know, and
He
the
did
first
that
thing, the
fast,
first
too.
thing would be getting down in there. Well, the first thing he'd do is come down in there. We'd take the trees that would interfere with his access out of the way. Then he'd pop the stumps out with the excavator. Then he'd grade that. And what we could do, you know, you could take some of the fill material that you may generate from digging out the
Right, stumps.
cart path. Well, when you take the cart path, you're going to take the cart path, but he's going to be digging that down a certain amount so he can get a solid base under there. And that material that he's digging out of there, you know, is going to be soil, loomy soil. Once you get past the crummy cart path that's already there, you can use that to fill in places around where the stumps may have coming out. Or if you want to make that, I look at, you know, where those pine trees coming out, once we pull those stumps out, I consider making that, you know, rough grass so people can find their balls and play them out of there. There is kind of a little junk pile in the middle, a couple ledge, couple pieces of twisted iron and some other stuff that's got to come out of there. But we could, you know, we could clean that, you know, clean that right up. So once he gets the excavator in there, then you can do a lot of that stuff with the excavator. Like you said, I mean, he said I can push trees down any way you want me to. Just put a little notch in them, and there they go. He's got a much bigger machine than so. So now on these things, I mean, I'm gonna call the radio guy tomorrow and I can order the radios. Since that'll be okay. And
Your wheels are turning, what are you thinking?
We need to get this approval before the Board of Selectmen for the use of the articles and the timing of it, but I would go forward on it. Yes, order.
okay. And I'll call the Finch man and John Deere guy and try to set something
What
up
is
for
that? How big is it? Little,
What's that?
that edge of hand?
It's kind of like a sod cutter, but it's not as heavy. It's not as big.
Oh, okay.
It's a mechanized piece of equipment. It's got 6 or 7 different
Blades?
blades on it.
Right.
You got the straight up and down blade.
Right, you got-
You know, some guys even use it to edge their cart paths with, but you know they run through blades a little bit quick because if you don't have a guy who's, you know, hitting the blacktop will chew the blade up a little bit.
All right, so
Other guys use it.
that'll take a lot of digging and all that other edge.
Yeah, it takes a lot of digging other stuff out. I mean, we can, instead of having to do it all by hand,
Yeah.
you know, we take that and we zip around the outside of
And
the
then
bunker
just
once
pick
we
up the
mark
edge.
it,
Yeah.
and then we just pick up the
Yeah, that's
pieces, and then we clean the bunker and bottom out, put the new sand.
Make sure
in,
you
and
have
then
a
move the
place
next one.
hanging from the ceiling, so when Manny comes in, he can see it there.
No, he's gonna put that dirt with all that's the next thing we gotta work on, is the plugs.
So who?
What are we gonna do with that?
The plugs? Oh, I've got a spot for those already. Part of removing, you know, is up there between the behind the ladies' tee on 5, or the forward tee on 5, and in that area there, there's, you know, we need to get up there, get the rocks and stuff out of there, and we could fill that in and clean that up. And put some of them there.
So
I'd like to.
How do we get started on 8?
How do we get started on 8? I'd have to talk to Dan, have him come down, take a look at it, and see what his timetable is. And as far as tree work is concerned, I can start anytime. I just wouldn't want
I
to
got
take
that
the.
guy's email, and I'll check if Isaac knows him better than I do. I'll see if I got it, if I have his phone number.
Yeah, I mean, I
No, we'll
can
knock
drive
on
down
his
the
door.
driveway and knock on
Yeah.
his door too, but we'll try that avenue first.
So you would meet with Dan and kind of get a timeline
Yeah, I have him look at it, and we'll look at that, and the timeline all depends on what he's doing now, what he's going to have for available time, and
Right.
so on. And then once that's established, like I said, I can start on the trees anytime. I prefer to start on the trees when the ground's a little hard. So if I miss by a little bit, I don't cause any damage. But some of them I can get in there. Like I
So
said,
you can give us an update at the next meeting, right?
yeah. I gotta talk to him tomorrow anyway about his pressure washers.
The last thing on our list for tonight says, the first pass of the FY 2024 budget.
The first pass was submitted by Steve and Dana, and the numbers is a 6.9% increase over last year. And a significant portion of that is in the salaries. I don't know what the next step is for us. I'm looking for recommendations.
Well, yeah, we still have to confirm the debt, principal and interest number.
That's correct for me.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's correct.
Got it.
One thing you haven't done is confirm the leases,
Right.
both for golf carts and for equipment. Because I think both of them are lower. This
Yeah.
will be higher. But I don't know how to go about it. I asked Nick, how can I get a record of all the leases that are current in effect, but.
I think we have, because I remember talking to him about that a while ago. I think we have, equipment-wise, I think we have 2, possibly 3. We have, you have the roller and you have the
Well, we have.
1026,
Yeah, we have.
the walker.
The original fairway mower still,
Yeah, the fairway
yeah,
mower.
that's open.
Yeah, because the triplex was paid for, so
I'll
so
do
those
s-
3.
I'll do some homework with that, with Nick, to see if I can find exactly what the outstanding leases are. And if you're gonna cancel the sprayer, that will drop the lease. Future, that's for FY 25, though, not 24. So what do we do?
Do we have the revenue plan that supports the 1,836,000?
Well, that's part of the title, right? It needs to come together, right? Which, at that increase, it's talking about a $4 a round increase. If it's 120, based on 34,000 rounds, it's roughly $4.
$126,000 increase, that's not even $4.
I just
Well,
kind of,
With the potential of a recession coming or whatever, question is whether you want to increase fees or not.
You know what, Ed, and you talked to me about that, I think is some of the holdup on some of these golf courses going forward with what they're gonna do for the next season.
Right.
So like I said, I got 10 or 12 that I'm started with, and some of them there's no set rate yet,
For next season, right?
Right,
But
right.
if we can compare with the.
This year's,
Yeah.
yeah, I can do, I'll
Current
get that.
peak season.
Okay, yep, all right.
Not the discount.
right, but a portion of the concern would also be the cost increases of inflation that we're incurring with our vendors. So I mean, we're kind of, last year we said conservatively we went with $3, and everybody else jumped like 7, 8, and 10, and you know what I mean, they went crazy with it. We were very conservative.
Mhm.
A $4 or $5 rate increase on us only puts us right even where everybody jumped last year. And once we come up, we'll check the
I'll
rates.
get the numbers.
You know, we don't have to, we're not committing to it now, but I just threw that together to give you a ballpark number, on the rounds. That's all of this season's rounds using last November and December's numbers, for those rate increases, to give you the volume. So it's roughly this season, and filled in, substituted last winter's numbers for this winter that hasn't occurred yet.
And on the expense side, short of just verifying the leases, I mean, nothing jumps out as unreasonable on the expense side, so then it really just makes the 111,000 of the increase is all listed up on the top part of the salary, so it's just like, what can we do? You know, to value the employees and the work they're doing in the market versus what's affordable. If the plan, seems to bear out without having a crystal ball. That's gonna be the balance. To me, it's gonna be the top part, not the
Yeah.
bottom part.
The town administrator put out a memo to all department heads that says there should be no COLA increase included in the FY '24 budget.
I think that's to non-enterprise, because that's what, the discussion that we had with the selectmen, when we presented our budgets last year, they stated to us that we're a golf enterprise fund, and the decisions of our COLAs are based upon what we agree upon in this committee, and then we present it moving forward. So we've already didn't receive a COLA last year.
Right. I'm just going by what
What did he say?
Well, yeah, and I'm just giving you what the selectmen said to Stephen and I at the meeting.
Last meeting or the year ago?
No, it was the meeting, it was last year when we went before the selectmen to
This
present
is
the
what this
budget.
guy is saying now.
Well, the philosophy by the selectmen is what was issued to us, which we're communicating to you.
Yeah, see, they basically told you that it said it's an enterprise. The gist I got of it is you're an enterprise fund, it's your funds. Deal with them the way that you feel appropriate. That's it. And I remember I saw what he put out too, because I got the email from Lisa about that. And I had thought that when the four of us were sitting in his office talking with him a couple weeks ago, whenever it was, he had said that again, reiterating that we were an enterprise fund, and that he was expecting us to put together our budget and beat it up, massage it or whatever, and then submit it.
Because the other departments, he requested a flat budget, a 5% reduced budget, and then
1% increase.
1% increased budget. But because we're an enterprise fund, we were to discuss our budget and present it. And it also should be understood, when we went through COVID, there were 3 departments that were on, had a high sense of urgency, and it was police, fire, and we were going full throttle right along with them, with the biggest surge in business that we've had with the skeleton crew. So you guys should reflect on that. And
I think it's unreasonable to expect 2 years in a row of nothing. COLA increase for anybody, regardless of what the memo did or didn't say. So we need to, in my opinion, we need to do something. Is it what's on this piece of paper right now? I haven't looked at it closely enough to see, but I feel we need to do something and then justify the way to afford it. And that is the one benefit in a way of being, the enterprise fund, right? We are sustaining ourselves. When you get kind of a town-wide look at other departments, they are sustaining themselves, with the tax revenue and everything that comes into the town. So they need to be able to fit it within their revenue, right, and that leads to some of the decisions that they make. And with our own revenues and supporting our operations, it does give us a little bit more flexibility in what we can or can't do. Is my opinion. So I think as a first pass, it's probably a good place to start. Let's think, look at the rates, see if we, you know, if that leads to a $4 to $5 increase. Do we think that that's sustainable? Do we see, you know, the unfortunate thing is, by the time the next real golf season starts, it's gonna be after when we're kind of deciding what we're going to be requesting and thinking about doing. So, again, not having the crystal ball to see how much weight.
Right,
is
how much
going-
inflation's gonna go up and how, if a recession sets
Right.
in.
So that's
But
kind
we've
of-
always been in a
Recession is already here,
situation-
they just don't
Right,
want to
so-
say
Right, it's
so.
no different than 10
No.
years ago, 8 years ago,
No,
it's the
it's no
same thing,
different at
so.
all. No,
I mean, it's probably an okay starting point just for now as a
Yeah.
placeholder, and then
go
work
forward.
on
So we need to review Green's fee and make a recommendation there.
Well, I think that's part of what John, as he said, and Dan, we're gonna look into to see what our competitors are now compared to ours. Look at that, see what the differential is, and then, again, just as an example, if we're already $4 cheaper than what we consider our competitors to be now, well, then a $4 increase probably isn't unreasonable to look at, right? If we were, and I know we're not, but if we were already $4 more, and we say, let's add another 4 to make us $8 more, then that might not be a good decision. So I think without having that data to compare it to.
Personally, I think, the public courses in this area are gonna go up again. Probably between $5 and $7.
I don't see how they can't.
Right.
They're-
Exactly, I
they're-
can't see how they can.
They're
either.
buying things from
No,
the
I
same
know
people that
Yeah,
I am.
And just
Stop
looking
them.
from your view of like,
Pesticides, fungicides,
fertilizer
that stuff's
alone.
going through the roof.
I mean, you go buy a bag of fertilizer, what used to cost you $40, now it costs you $75.
Right.
You know, so I mean, it's gotta, I mean, I don't know if the public will understand that. Well, they do at the grocery store, but at the golf course, you know, it's a luxury.
Right.
So-
Disposable income.
So where we're gonna,
It's their disposable income, but I mean, if they go to Fenway Park and try to buy a hot dog and a beer.
I know.
Go to Gillette Stadium.
But to counteract that, you don't need to go to Fenway Park, you watch it on TV,
True.
right?
Yeah.
You can't do that on play golf.
Make sure you have
play
make
golf
sure you
on
have your
TV.
cable bill, because your cable bill's going up too.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're right.
Unless you're streaming, but then if you don't have the right telephone and device, which has gone up in price too,
Yeah.
I just think, in general, everybody's feeling the pinch anyway.
And then we can come up.
exactly, before we propose a rate increase, we wanna see what the other ones are, and then the rate increase leads to justify next year's budget, no matter which line gets affected by it.
Again, we'll be looking at kind of in hindsight, what the competitors were charging
Right,
This-
peak season this past season versus our peak
and
season.
see what the
Exactly.
gap is.
All right.
Right,
So
they're
that would
charging
be a
$20
top
today,
pick.
something like
Yeah,
that.
okay, you can put it on there, yeah, I'll have that information. Yep.
All right, then we just gotta, the next meeting bring us into December already now.
Because the budget will be here before you know it.
Yeah, I know, huh? Yeah. You know what,
Try to
time
start working on.
flies.
I'm not gonna do,
What's the
we're not gonna
date?
do the 22nd, so I leave like the 15th. If we're thinking Thursday.
December 15th.
I can't do the 22nd.
No, neither could I, so 15 or 29.
Oh, shit, what's the 15th, isn't it Friday?
15's a Thursday.
15th's a Thursday.
I got a fundraiser to do for John Saunders' kid.
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
29?
Yeah.
8, 15, 20, well, 22 and 29 are the Thursdays. And
29
1.
is fine with me, I don't know about other people.
29th? I'll go with
29, I'm on vacation
You're
that
right.
week, but
Good
like
idea.
I said,
Okay. 29th? Ed, do you want me to forward you the things I'd come up with? Okay,
Yeah, maybe we can get a head start on it.
okay, I'll do that. I'll get it to you by the end of the week, and the next week. So
what's our timing on that?
I mean, that's, for me personally, I mean, that's school vacation week, if we wanted to meet even earlier than 4:30, that's fine with me. I don't know what you
This
guys
is
are
on
doing.
the 29th.
The 29th,
You wanna go 4 o'clock?
I can go earlier than that.
Yeah.
Why don't we go 2 o'clock? 'Cause he's,
I don't know, Ed, you available?
I'm-
I'm fine with it.
okay. 2 o'clock? Dave, you're good?
Yeah, because I'll be home that day, so, yeah.
Okay.
Now, we're gonna meet here at 2 o'clock on the 29th. You might wanna check, because the 29th is, I don't know if, how
Right.
the,
Right, with
The
that.
The holiday
holidays, this
works.
might not be available.
this might not be
Yeah,
available.
I'll check.
So we'll say that tentatively.
Where's that guy
Yeah.
taking the movies?
We had to adjust the time, we said, you know, we got
I can find a
plenty of
location.
time to do it, so.
Yeah.
Do it at Manny's place.
Manny's place.
Buffet.
You can come down to the shop, you'll freeze.
Buffet.
Buffet.
All right. So then maybe motion to adjourn, somebody,
Make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Good night, thank you.